What's happening, and welcome to a magnificent Monday edition of the 24th Floor. It is March the 3rd. We've officially flipped the calendar into the luckiest month of the year, but a not-so-lucky start of March for the Grizzlies as they go 0-2 on the weekend. Michael Wallace of Grind City Media will join me as we get into what went wrong and how many spots in the West is going to cost the Grizzlies. 24th Floor starts right now. Joining our show today, Michael Wallace of Grind City Media. He's the senior editor, contributor, and analyst, basically the man with a plan. He runs things over there, and thus he knows a lot. That's why we bring him on the show. Mike Wall, what's happening, brother?
Hey, what's going on, Avery, man? Good to be on with you, man. Looking forward to it.
Appreciate you joining the show. Know you had a busy weekend. You had the Jackson State crew come and visit FedEx Forum on Friday. Had to check out that Knicks game, yeah?
Yeah, that was pretty good, man. We had almost 20 students and faculty members from Jackson State University's Journalism and Media Studies program. And, you know, they had a great shadowing mini internship opportunity to hang out with us and see our multiple departments within the Grizzlies organization. And, you know, we try to use that as a pathway, you know what I mean, to encourage, you know, the next generation of people that are going to be doing these jobs, man. And the Grizzlies laid out the red carpet and Jackson State soaked it all up. So I was glad to be a part of that.
Very, very cool. Certainly something I wish I would have had available to me when I was in school. I was doing a lot of the behind-the-scenes production work. I was a graphics op when I was in college before I got onto the on-camera side of things. So I can't imagine what being able to go into State Farm Arena. I went to Mercer University in Georgia would have been like for me as I was trying to figure out this journalism game and exactly what I wanted to do. Unfortunately for Jackson State, they went to a game where the Grizzlies lost to the New York Knicks. Let's go ahead and jump into our big idea of today. In back-to-back nights, the Grizzlies lose in the final moments of clutch time. First to the Knicks as Jalen Brunson was able to find OG Anunoby after Ja Morant gave the Grizzlies the lead late in this game. OG Anunoby for a late three to take the lead. And then Ja Morant, after making one clutch time basket, couldn't get the lay to go at the buzzer. Knicks would win that one 114-113. Then on Saturday night, taking on the Spurs, the Grizzlies battled back from 20 down, 12 down in the fourth to tie it, only for De'Aaron Fox to send the hometown fans back to the crib, sad with a step-back jumper to give the Spurs a 130-128 lead. Here's Taylor Jenkins and De'Aaron Fox on that game.
I thought the switching was good for us. It's not on Zach. We lost the game because in the second quarter we couldn't guard. So that's what it came down to. End of game, you know, credit Fox, big-time player, tried to get the ball out of his hands twice in a row. He rejected and hit a tough step back. That's what he does. You know, we've been in a lot of end-of-game situations. It's worked for us sometimes, and some of it hasn't, and we've got to continue to get better in that department. But, you know, this game and the Indy game, you give up almost 50 points in a quarter. It's a big hurdle to come over.
Spot like that, we knew they had no timeouts, so you really just try to get up the last shot. And I knew that they would hit, which just means sending a double team. I knew they would do it. So I told them, one, be ready, but two, if I can go get the ball, like I'm going to go back and get the ball. So got off of it early. Dev kicked it back to me, and they tried to do it again and just rejected it, tried to get to a spot, tried to get the last shot.
The Grizzlies now 13-14 in clutch time situations. Mike Wall, what went wrong for the Grizzlies in these two matchups in your eyes?
Well, I mean, late game execution. You know what I mean? The Grizzlies did what they needed to do to keep themselves in the game, but you can't keep, you know, trailing. You can't keep messing around and going behind.
Looks like Mike might be dealing with a little bit of internet issue over there. Well, to follow up on his point, I think he's exactly right. You are in both of these games at home. We're in FedEx Forum where you have to come back from behind, especially with that Spurs matchup. Looks like Michael Wall's coming back, but I'm going to finish my point real quick. When you're trailing by 20 points in a game to a Spurs team that is really not that great, and then you use all that energy to get back into the game. Jaren Jackson Jr. was amazing, had 42 points. But by then, you've played so much catch-up that when you have to get into a late-game clutch time situation, things may not go your way, and you put yourself in a position to lose that game at home that was very winnable. Mike, please finish your point. I apologize, brother.
Oh, no, no, no. That was on me too, man. It's one of those things where you can't mess around with the schedule right now. We know the Grizzlies are in this stretch right now, 3 games in 4 nights. And you're not sure who's going to be available. Availability got the best of the Grizzlies against the Spurs, where you go back the night before, and it was just one of those situations where the Knicks just out executed you down the stretch in that situation. So, right now it's been a rough stretch for the Grizzlies. Even in the win over Phoenix, they gave up 148 points. Then you give up 130 plus against the Spurs. You can't give up 110, 120, 130 and expect to beat some of these teams, especially if they're hungry and if they're in the pursuit and they're desperate as well. So that's defense is the issue for the Grizzlies right now, more so than anything else.
Yeah, you heard it in that clip from Taylor Jenkins there. An almost 50-point quarter to the Spurs, an almost 50-point quarter when they played the Indiana Pacers. They've had a few times this year where they've just given up inexplicable explosions of offense to other teams for what is largely supposed to be one of the better defensive teams in the NBA. But you get into some of these games, especially in the game with the Knicks in particular, where it felt like you were playing pretty good defense, just couldn't get the stops when you needed them in consecutive possessions. What have you seen, Mike, in these last couple of games that hasn't allowed the defense to thrive in ways that we really think it should?
Well, Avery, I'm gonna give you credit because you put together inexplicable explosion back to back, right? I mean, that takes some talent to be able to enunciate to that level, with all of those syllables.
I learned from the best. I learned from you, brother.
Smooth,
I read all your words.
So, shout out to you for that. But the thing about it is that the Knicks played at their pace. You know what I mean? The Grizzlies never really got the Knicks uncomfortable at all in that game against them, and it was just one of those situations where Jalen Brunson, OG Anunoby, Josh Hart, those guys, they control the game. And then when you also give up, some opportunities where their depth and the Knicks don't go deep, but they do have some guys that can come off that bench and really, really, really hurt you. So, when they got that energy boost from some of the guys, Landry Shamet came off the bench and hurt him a little bit. The other guard, number 2, came off the bench and hurt him a little bit. The Grizzlies just didn't have McBride. He didn't have a counter for those guys. And, by the time you got to the Spurs, you were without Dez, you were without Ja, you were without, Brandon Clark and Vince Williams Jr. You were just depleted on the second night of a back-to-back, and that was just too much against a Spurs team that had some younger legs and really wanted to get one, and they needed to get one desperately.
Yeah, you talk about the bench play there in these last couple of games. I mean, Deuce McBride for the Knicks gave him 17. Really, the Knicks lean really, really heavily on their starting five and not so much on their bench, but they did get a little bit of a boost there. The back-to-back, you guys are nursing injuries. You were talking about Vince Williams all year kind of getting back into the fold, but you're missing Ja Morant in that game dealing with his shoulder. Desmond Bane did not play in this game. Brandon Clark, understandable, brother. You had to get stitches after you got dang near knocked out in the Knicks game, but certainly missing a lot of bodies in that one. But listening to some of the post-game comments, I think about Santi Aldama in particular, just does it feel like the urgency is there for the Grizzlies in some of these games where we know how tight the West is and every game is going to count in a way that's different than if you're playing in the East? Does it feel to you like they had the urgency they needed in this home matchup, home stand rather, when you came out of the East Coast road trip 1 and 2?
Not necessarily. The urgency to defend and on a consistent basis, the urgency to, kind of stick with your game plan. Now, granted, like all of these guys, I used to say this a long time ago, like all of these guys are on scholarship. All of these guys are professional players who you're playing against. So it's not like you could just outwill another team because they want to play too. They want to win too. But when you get your back up against the wall and you have been one of the best teams in terms of the third best record at home at FedEx Forum, that's where you find your comfort. And for the Grizzlies to, kind of wobble along and so far in this homestand, that's not ideal at this stretch of the season when you knew coming out of the All-Star break you were going to have the third toughest stretch third toughest schedule in the NBA coming out of the All-Star break. And that trend has continued. The Grizzlies have been able to, up until San Antonio, they've been able to beat the sub 500 teams. And they had a trend of losing to the plus 500 teams. And that's been the case so far over these last 5-10 games. And they got to break out of that, man. They got to continue to take care of business against teams like the Hawks, who are under 500, who they played tonight, and then string together some wins against some of these elite teams. And they'll have a chance on Wednesday to do that against Oklahoma City, a team that's just run away with the West right now.
Yeah, let's go ahead and look at those Western Conference standings while you brought it up. Oklahoma City with a far and above lead over everybody else. 2 losses in a row for the Grizzlies, 4-6 in their last 10. It means they've taken a bit of a slide in the Western Conference standings. Memphis now 4th behind the Thunder, the Lakers in 2nd, and the Denver Nuggets. The Rockets only a 1 game back in 5th place. Clippers, Warriors, and Timberwolves round out the top 8. Mike, how concerning is this slide for Memphis, especially when we weren't really talking about the Lakers before they got Luka Doncic, and now all of a sudden you're looking up at them in 2nd place?
That's the hottest team in the NBA since the trade deadline, and really the hottest team in the NBA over the past month. And they're playing like, this isn't a fluke what the Lakers are doing. I mean, and they're doing this against a number of teams that, are elite. They basically went into Denver and did it against Denver. They're doing it against some of the top teams. So we'll see if they can continue and stay healthy. And they're doing it without a lot of bigs in the middle from that standpoint. If you're the Grizzlies, you haven't played well against the Lakers. You're 1-2 against them. You split with Denver, and they didn't even have Jokic in those games. And then, you're ahead of Houston by 1 game, but you lost 3 out of 4 to them. You don't have the tiebreaker there. So this is a real dangerous spot for the Grizzlies, because if Houston catches them, they lose the tiebreaker, and that's the difference between home court advantage in the 4-5 in that situation. So, and now you're in a month right now where you still have, as we talked about, you in this homestand against Oklahoma City. You play them twice this month. You still play the Lakers. You get Cleveland again, which is a team that has the best record in the league, and you also play Boston. So you have the elite of the elite all crammed into this month of March. This is going to be a gauntlet for the Grizzlies, but it's now or never in terms of whether they want to stay in one of those top 2, 3, 4 seeds.
Yeah, I don't see them sliding past maybe a 4th or a 5th, but you're talking about being 2nd in the West when you entered this weekend. And when you are 2nd in the West, you're avoiding that number 1 seed until the last possible second. Now you're talking about being 4th. You get a 4-5 matchup that, with all intents and purposes, I might have felt better or not as good about the Rockets matchup a month ago or 2 months ago. But now, kind of looking at it, that might be a more favorable matchup in a 7-game series for the Grizzlies, just kind of looking at where the Rockets have been lately and what the Grizzlies have figured out. But when you're in that 2 seed, you don't have to face an Oklahoma City Thunder until the NBA Finals. And what you've done for yourself now is, if you slide, another step here in the standings, you're talking about facing them potentially in the 2nd round, which is not what you want to do, and kind of negates so much work that the Grizzlies have done up until this point. So, to your point, you're taking on the elite of the elite. You do have the Thunder on Wednesday, who, I mean, they've been whooping everybody's tail, not just yours. But from what you've seen from Oklahoma City, do you see any chinks in that armor for any team that's got to face them in a 7-game series?
The way that you beat Oklahoma City is you have to be able to stand up to their physicality and inflict some physicality on them. You have to be able to defend them without putting them on the line as best as you can, because they have the ultimate equalizer in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Right now, who's the front runner for MVP? They also have wing players who can knock down threes, and they just get hot. And what they also have is 2 bigs, you know what I mean, who can be disruptive at the rim. Hardenstein is a guy that can get you a double-double easily and get a lot of putbacks, stay on the offensive glass. And then, when you talk about Chet Holmgren being, that unicorn in the middle, it's hard to get shots off up against those guys. So they are put together absolutely perfectly when it comes to that. And they've been healthy for a long time. That's the thing, with the exception of Holmgren. So, when you look at them, when you look at what Oklahoma City can do to you, you got to figure out a way to try to beat their physicality. And the Grizzlies are going to have to do that. They have them at home again. You got to win that game at home. So, hey, but look, I wouldn't look past the first round. because we're saying, hey, possibly playing that team in the second round, you want to avoid having a matchup with them in the second round. But these first round matchups are going to be brutal too, because whether you swing and you get, the Clippers, that's the team you hadn't matched up against.
Yeah.
If you get 3-6, if you go 4-5, Houston, they've owned this series so far over the past 2 years for the most part. And then, you go 2-7, you got to take one of these hot teams that are coming out of the play-in. And you don't want to see Golden State right now because they're one of the hottest teams with Jimmy Butler. So it's one of those things where it's not going to be an easy path no matter who lines up where. And that's not for the Grizzlies. That's for everybody in the West.
Yeah, that's a very good point. It doesn't really matter how high a seed you are. Any of those teams coming kind of out of the play-in, and we always talk about rest versus rust in those matchups as well. It kind of seems like whoever is the higher seed has kind of been sitting around watching. You're talking about a team that has kind of figured out what the playoff feel maybe looks like in that first round. Let's talk about what they've got to do tonight. The Grizzlies taking on the Atlanta Hawks, a team that's been very kind of up and down. Very similar to the Grizzlies, but the Grizzlies have a much better record to show for it. Atlanta, another one of those kind of under 500 teams figuring it out. Mike, in your mind, what do the Grizzlies got to do tonight to take care of Atlanta, especially a team with Trae Young, who may be just as dynamic as Ja Morant, maybe in a very different kind of way?
Yeah, I mean, you just got to overwhelm those guys. The Hawks are a team that, they're competitive, but they shouldn't be coming into your building and beating you, right? They just shouldn't. They made a trade, and DeAndre Hunter went from Atlanta to Cleveland, and he's made a huge difference for the Cavaliers. And so they were, you kind of looked at them as kind of sellers at the trade deadline, and they knew that, look, they still are going to fall into the play-in mix in the Eastern Conference because the East is forgiving. Chicago is still holding on to the final play-in spot there. So, Atlanta's one of those teams that, they get streaky. Trae Young can shoot it. They do like to rim run a lot. They got bigs in Capella and some of the younger athletic guys. Jalen Johnson is one of the best young players, most improved players that you have in the NBA right there. They have the young rookie, number 1 overall pick, Zachary Risache. And, so they have interchangeable parts that can make it uncomfortable for you. A lot like the Spurs. So if you're going to look at what the Spurs was able to do, that's exactly the way that the Atlanta Hawks want to play as well, too. And just substitute De'Aaron Fox for Trae Young. And Trae Young has a three-point ball that extends from half court. So, this is going to be a tricky game, but it's one, if you're the Grizzlies, you got to be desperate because this is one you need to get after losing these last two. Even though they were one-possession games, they are still games that you lost that you shouldn't have lost on your home court. Yeah,
the Hawks certainly missing a couple of guys. They won't have Jalen Johnson. He's out for the rest of the year dealing with an injury. Yeah. They won't have Georges Niang, who they traded for in that trade with the Cleveland Cavaliers to get. They sent DeAndre Hunter away. So a couple of guys missing for the Atlanta Hawks. I think you're right. There has to be
they have Karis LeVert, though.
They do have Karis LeVert. Yeah, they will have Karis LeVert. So, I think a certain level of desperation is certainly the appropriate way to put it, because I think when we talked about this homestand that they were entering, which was going to be 5 games, you thought they could get out of it maybe 4-1, maybe 5-0, depending on what goes down with that Oklahoma City game. And now you're staring at it 0-2, or 1-2 rather. And I think that's really frustrating for a team that we think could be somewhere at the top of the standings, a team that says they're serious about contending, but so far have been pretty unserious, at least when it comes out of the All-Star break in this kind of second half of the season. So, Grizzlies take on the Atlanta Hawks tonight, 7 p.m. in FedEx Forum. We're going to talk a little bit of football real quick because Mike's got a lot of reasons to be excited. Got to run this by you because I know you're a Commanders fan. The San Francisco 49ers trading Deebo Samuel to your Commanders, Mike Wallace. The wide receiver helped the 49ers reach 2 Super Bowl appearances. He's swapped in exchange for just 1 5th-round draft pick. Washington also taking on the remainder of Samuel's contract and will be paying for his full salary in the 2025 season. Coming off one of his worst statistical seasons as a pro, just 670 yards and a couple of touchdowns. Officially requested a trade from San Francisco a couple of weeks ago. Mike, how you feeling, man? Because y'all Commanders had a pretty good year. dealing with Jaden Daniels as a
pretty good
rookie
year.
QB.
A pretty good year.
A pretty good year,
we were
yeah.
a surprise team in the NFL, man. We got to the NFC Championship game, and that was house money right there, man. We'll take it. Debo is coming off of, like you said, his least productive season, really since his breakout year, a few years ago. But what he comes to the Commanders to do now is he doesn't have to be the number one option or even the number two option. McLaurin, Scary Terry is our number one wide receiver. You put Debo on the other side to get all of the underneath stuff, to catch the hitch and go routes. Zach Ertz is our tight end, when we get into the red zone. And like I said, Debo can find his way somewhere behind McLaurin and Ertz. And then we got Eckler's, coming out of the backfield too. So this just gives the Commanders another weapon to be able to offset what the Eagles was able to do. Like the Eagles were able to control the game in that NFC Championship. Dallas, is going to come back a little bit stronger. They're not going to just give away the division again like they did to the Commanders and to the Eagles. So when you talk about those two teams, you got to have an arms race to keep up, and you need weapons. And if you slot Debo in the right place, he can be productive for you. We don't need 1,000 yards from him. We just need him to stay healthy and to take some of that attention so we can get deep down the field. So I like it, man. You're going to see a lot of players wanting to come play, alongside Jaden Daniels, man. That guy is a superstar in this league, and he's going to be one for a long time coming.
Yeah, Jaden Daniels was really, really impressive. I think the way he took control of that locker room led you guys to so many wins over the course of the clutch time moments, kind of like what we were talking about with the Grizzlies here earlier. What he was able to do as a rookie, I think, makes him very attractive to not just wide receivers, but all kinds of stars, guys who are going to play on both sides of the ball, because when you have a guy who commands a locker room, no pun intended, like that, it gives you confidence. And I think we saw that a lot with the Commanders this year, with the way he was able to lead that team. Debo coming into y'all's locker room, I think is an incredible pickup, because the value that I think you're going to get out of him being, we call him a gadget guy or a utility guy, but putting Debo in the slot and him not having to worry about being he's probably getting picked up by your number 2 and maybe number 3 DB now, because of what Scary Terry's been able to do and the production that he has and the connection that he's got with Jaden Daniels as a deep threat. The underneath, I think Debo Samuel's going to thrive in, and he can operate as a secondary tailback for you. Give Nichols a little bit of a time to breathe on the sideline and give him a little reverse here and there. I think this is a great pickup for your Commanders. You guys should have a lot to be excited about for this next NFL season.
For a fifth round pick, Mike. I don't think there's no one we would have picked in the 5th round that was going to have the kind of production that Debo is going to have. And now you can focus the other pieces of that draft on defense, because we do need to shore up some defense and get a little bit more discipline on that side of the ball. But I like where we are, man. We were ahead of the window, and now the expectation is going to be there for us to be solidified this coming year. So I like where the Washington Commanders are at this point, man. So I'm good with that.
All right, very cool. HTTR for my guy, Mike Wallace. Appreciate you joining the show today, man. I will see you at the game this evening.
Yes, sir.
Got to take a little break, but when we come back, got to get into a dominant win for the Memphis Tigers that just about wraps up the arms race for number 1 in the AAC. And we'll go back to the NFL as 2 Tigers had some solid performances at the Combine. A whole lot of Tigers coming up next.
The weather affects us every day, but some days are more impactful than others. In Memphis, we get it all. From heat waves, severe storms, snow, and ice. As a meteorologist, it's my job to keep you safe on those impactful days. Don't get caught off guard and know what to expect with ABC 24 Weather Impact Days.
The 24 Plus app. Watch us live and continue with us on 24 Plus. And get extended coverage of weather and breaking news. The 24 Plus app. ABC 24 is making your voice heard.
This city is filthy, it's crime infested, and somebody need to do something about it.
Listening to your concerns.
We could have such a great city if we really just put the time and energy into it and come up with solutions.
And getting results for you.
We appreciate 24 for coming out.
Getting the issues taken care of.
When you put it on ABC 24, somebody gonna listen.
ABC 24, seeking solutions for you.
I just love working on this morning show.
We really are like one big family. Myself, Yvonne, Ruben.
You're probably gonna like what you see and what you hear, and you're gonna leave being informed and having a little bit of fun at the same time.
ABC 24 News this morning.
Welcome back to the 24th floor. Good weekend for the Memphis Tigers. Penny Hardaway's Hoop Squad getting a big win over UAB, a 100-77 win the first time around in FedEx Forum. This one would be a little bit more difficult. UAB came out swinging, on-ball pressure creates a turnover. The ball finds Tony. Gonna bang home a three-pointer from the corner. Tigers had 8 turnovers in the first 12 minutes of the game. Really kept UAB in this one, gave them the lead early on. Dane Danger coming right back on the other end. Big fella fighting for the rebound, punches it home, but more defense to offense for UAB. Tony gonna get the block on PJ Haggerty, and on the other end, it's Christian Coleman with the deuce. Blazers up 6 at the half. A very competitive second half coming. Watch the big fellow work. Musa Cisse patient in the paint. And then the boomstick down low. Give him one more chance on the break. PJ Haggerty going to be no good at the rim. Cisse, rebound. Cisse, slam. Bam, bam. Tigers up 1. And then Haggerty was phenomenal in the second half. 17 of his 25 points came in the second frame. Tigers would finish this game on a 13-1 run to close UAB out. 88-81, the final score. Dane Danger with 16 points, 17 rebounds, a double-double there. Colby Rogers had 21 points. And then Penny Hardaway walked out of Birmingham refreshed. He would get the locker room shower. Tigers are now 14-2 on the season. Oh, here it comes. Let me see if I can get the shower here. Maybe not. I tried. We'll think about it. 14-2 on the season. Here it comes. Penny Hardaway, a little editing snafu there. Penny Hardaway gets the shower. Tigers 14-2 on the season. They are number 1 in the AAC, and they have a couple of games lead on the AAC going here into the last couple of games of the season. Just 2 games left. They will play UTSA on the road on Tuesday, and then they will finish on Friday against South Florida. This was an incredible game for Memphis because it was a really tough, hard-fought game. Like I said earlier, 100-77. They handled UAB pretty easily at home the first time. And so when you had to take them out on the road, you knew UAB was going to be coming back swinging in this game. And I think that's exactly what they got. They got the Blazers' best shot from Andy Kennedy and company. A really big game. Let's look at the box score just a little bit. 25 points, 4 assists for PJ Haggerty. 21 points from Colby Rogers, who had a phenomenal game shooting from beyond the arc. 5 of 9 from three-point range. Dane Danger, 16 points, 17 rebounds. Also had a couple of blocks in this one. You get 11 points, 5 boards from Tyrese Hunter, who was 5 of 10 from the floor, and then Nicholas Jourdain doing what he does. I love the energy I got from Nick Jourdain in this one. 9 points, had 5 rebounds. I think he had 3 putback scenarios. 2 of those were putback slams. I think you saw the big one in that highlight. A great game from them. Just a really all-around effort from the Tigers in this one. The combination of PJ Haggerty and Dane Danger is becoming more and more dangerous as the games go along because their 1-2 punch is incredible. Dane Danger and Yaxel Lindenberg were dealing with some foul trouble in this game, and so when that kind of began to rear its ugly head, we saw PJ Haggerty, who had a very slow first half, I think just 6 points in that first half, comes back and has 17 in the second half. He was getting it any way he wanted at the basket, coming off the curl, off the screen and curl, in a pop-up situation. What PJ's been able to do, I think he's going to be an All-American, and he should be an All-American with what he's been able to put together. Yaxel Lindenberg, who is the preseason AAC Player of the Year, Didn't really get a whole lot from him. Let me see if I can get him in the box score here. He was dealing with some foul trouble of his own. 10 points, 6 rebounds, not what you expect from him, although they did get pretty good production from their guard, Jabari McGee. He had 22 on the night, 4 of 4 from three-point range. But for the second time in these last couple of games for the Tigers, able to close really strongly. I don't know what it is about the last 3 or so minutes, but they tend to take over games. 13-1 in this game. They had a similar run of 10-plus points to close the game against Rice. That was in FedEx Forum a week or two ago. So they've become very accustomed to knowing when it's time to turn it on, both defensively and offensively. And I think that's a testament to what Penny Hardaway has given this team. They are tough in a way that I think they have maybe not been earlier parts of the season, especially once you kind of got into AAC play, maybe a little bit of lackadaisical play. It's cost you a couple here in the AAC, just two. They're 14-2, and those games are on the road. So you're not going to sneeze at them, but what the Tigers are able to do here to close out the regular season has been really incredible. Let's look at the AAC standings. I don't think I have the graphic for you, but 14-2. They are sitting at first, 24-5 overall. North Texas is sitting right behind them. They're 12-3, 21-6. So as long as the Tigers do what they're supposed to do, win at least one of these games, there's a pretty good chance that they're going to be regular season AAC champions, which Penny Hardaway said was something that was incredibly important for him for his team to accomplish, because it's something they haven't done quite yet. And then they go into the AAC tournament, hopefully with a lot of momentum, because they have a regular season championship under their belt. They won't play until Friday because they've already secured the double bye in the AAC. So a lot to be proud of for this team so far this season. Still a lot to do, but as of right now, I think I saw on ESPN they're a 99% chance to make the NCAA tournament, so a virtual lock. And what you don't want to happen here is allowing any more slip, because it looks like they're going to be probably a 6 or 7 seed in the NCAA tournament. And what happens if you drop a game to a UTSA, which would be inexcusable, or a South Florida, which would also be inexcusable, you're talking about potentially being an 8 or 9 seed, and we know what happens with that 8 or 9 seed. It's something they've been trying to avoid for a very long time, and that's getting a potential win in the first round and then having to play the number 1 seed. What Penny Hardaway and his team want to do this year is not only get to the tournament, but they want to get to that second weekend and really make some noise. They've won their last 3 ball games. They're 12-2 at home, 9-2 on the road thus far. Of course, picking up their 9th win on the road against UAB in this matchup. A really good game. UAB is a good team. It was cool hearing on the broadcast how the announcers, the commentators were saying that the AAC doesn't get enough credit nationally. I think we saw that with these last couple of games. It's hard to win every single game in your conference, but the Tigers have largely taken care of business. So we'll see what they're able to do here as they close the regular season. Again, they take on UTSA on Tuesday, so they'll be on the road pretty quickly, and they'll have to turn the page on a big UAB win, 88-81 in Birmingham. Let's get into some Memphis football here. Over the weekend, Memphis Tigers Seth Hennigan and Rock Taylor took part in the NFL Draft Scouting Combine, becoming the first pair of Tigers to get invited to the Combine since 2022, when Calvin Austin and Dylan Parham rep the Tiger stripes. Pretty good showing for Memphis. A 4.76 40-yard dash for Seth Hennigan. Rock Taylor ran a 4.49. Taylor had a broad jump of 10 feet 2 inches. Hennigan was 9 feet 6 inches. But Hennigan out-verticaled his receiver, a 31.5-inch vertical. Rock Taylor just 30.5 inches. The pair really impressed. I think a lot of the scouts here going into the NFL draft is going to be in April. If you want to see if you're Seth Hennigan, I think he did what he's kind of supposed to do. I think he's going to be probably a backup quarterback in the league. Don't see him being somebody's starter, at least not right away. But it'll probably be good for him to kind of sit behind somebody else and learn for a couple of years. I think backup quarterback might be the best job in sports. So we'll see what happens with that. Rock Taylor, big body receiver, guy who can go up and get it. I think that's going to play well for him. Probably see him be a special teams specialist going into the first maybe year or two and see if he gets picked up. Wouldn't be surprised if he goes undrafted and maybe gets picked up and has to kind of earn his way onto a spot somewhere else. But we'll see what happens with the Tigers. Salute and clap for Hennigan and Rock Taylor. Let's go ahead and wrap up the show for the best thing I saw this week. Juju Watkins absolutely torched UCLA to help USC clinch the Big Ten. But what I loved was her swatting the shot away and getting USC legend Cheryl Miller out of her seat. Juju seems like she takes these matchups with UCLA real personally. 30 points, 5 assists, 3 blocks, and 2 steals. She's averaging 32 points, 9 rebounds, and 3 blocks in 5 career games versus the Bruins. It's just belt to tail every time Juju Watkins plays UCLA, and I really love to see it. She's one of the probably the best player in women's college basketball right now, and that's no disrespect to Paige Beckers. And it's certainly going to be Juju's league as we go here the next couple of years. So that's all I got for you here on the 24th floor today. We're back on Thursday with a little bit more fun and flavor. But for now, the work is done, and I will see you later.